the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Gargnesi, joined as always by Nima and Carlo. On today's show, we will review the Serie A weekend action with two massive matches. Napoli strike a big Scudetto blow against Atalanta in a 5-goal thriller in Bergamo. Juventus beat Milan 2-0 in the big match for fourth place. Lazio stay in fourth though as they thrash Verona. Roma continue their excellent form under Claudio Ranieri, while Inter win the evening game 3-1 against Empoli. We'll also discuss the latest transfer news, really big week ahead, especially at Juventus, with Juventus fans furious with Cristiano Giuntoli over various things, including the delay of Randall Colomuani's arrival, Andrea Cambiaso to Man City rumours, and also the struggles to get a centre-back in. Milan are closing in on Kyle Walker. Napoli are looking for a Kvaratskhelia replacement and are still trying for Alejandro Garnacho. We'll also preview the European fixtures with the return of the Champions League, and we have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week, and that is a cracker, so just wait for that. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. The link is in the description. Same price and terms. For all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. We're on YouTube as well. All of that really helps us to grow and do more quality content for you guys. And also, you can now become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. So just go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/@ItaFootPod for more details. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off with the big match at the top of the table, Atalanta against Napoli in Bergamo. A thriller of a game, 5 goals. Napoli win 3-2 in a match which, well, to be honest with you, it wasn't a 5-goal game based on the quality of the chances. Actually, the XG for both teams was like 0.8 odd, but the finishing in this game and the quality of the goals was absolutely insane. It was a wonderful, wonderful match to watch. But it's a huge win for Napoli in the Scudetto race, and a huge loss for Atalanta. Napoli potentially, we can say, knocking out a Scudetto rival, or very close to, and maybe making it a 2-horse race in the race for the title. It was a huge win for Napoli, Nima, especially in a week where they lose Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah, I think this is a 2-horse race now. Napoli do end Atalanta's title charge, and the way I view it is that Napoli showed in this game that the way they handled it, the way they behaved, the way they were mentally prepared, the way they tactically were prepared, the way they reacted to events in the game, the way they absorbed Atalanta's pressure. To me, that they looked more than anyone else like a team that's going to win the title in May. They were very mature, very controlled, very composed. Whenever they were in trouble, they reacted accordingly. They didn't stress over it. They had a game plan and they stuck to it. And they systematically broke Atalanta down, which is, again, this is what usually happens from January, February onwards when Antonio Conte takes over. It's I can't remember who it was. I've been racking my brain trying to remember who it was that's always used to say that Oh yeah, it was Will Beckman, who I recorded the Studio Interpod with. He used to say, I find this analogy so good about Conte teams. He said they're like a marching band, and well, from September to now, the instruments have been they've been warming up, they've been tuning in, and now they're hitting the notes. And that's when it looks like this. That's when you have players all coming into their own. Someone like Scott McTominay, who's been great all season, he's now being joined by others who are working well in this system, like Neres, um, and so on. And it really looks more and more like a team that, in terms of mental freshness, are very fresh, physical freshness, very fresh. That all that heavy pre-season work always is paying dividends now, as it always does with Conte. And they look very, very controlled, calm, and collected. Even when going a goal down from a wonderful goal from Retegui, they didn't stress. They systematically worked themselves into it, and then they turned the game on its head. And then when Lookman equalizes, and when the game is kind of tilting towards Atalanta's favor, they're structured enough defensively. There was a fantastic save by Meret on a chance, but Napoli absorb it, and then they go and hit the winner.
Mhm.
It was
Yeah, I think that's a fair review of the game and where Napoli are at right now. I think that also, we're seeing some tactically, we're certainly seeing what you call, Conte's calcio verticale. The last games, we're seeing
oh
that
yeah.
more and more. We're seeing a very, very clear system of play now.
Mm.
It's quite basic, to be honest with you, but it's straight into Lukaku's feet, direct as quickly as possible, and he plays the wall to players pushing forward, whether that's McTominay, whether that's the Politano and Neres off the wings, whether that's even Anguissa, who's getting forward quite a lot, and he got 2 assists in this game. It's Lukaku, who started the season brilliantly, then kind of fell off badly, everybody was questioning, you know, is he even good enough for Napoli this season? He's stepped it up a lot himself in the last kind of month or so, and he's playing that role brilliantly. He played it brilliantly in this game as well. Just receiving the ball back to goal, occupying a defender, including Hien, who absolutely dominated him in the reverse fixture, I remember, and is physically, one of the few players that can actually handle him physically. And the way that he held off Hien in this game, and the way he just holds off players, then lays it off, and then that just sets up the Napoli attacks from any area, really. And it's so important, and it's working so well for Napoli. It means that even in games where the opposition are dominating possession, which Atalanta did, and even when the opposition are on top, as Atalanta were, they can still create chances, because all they need to do is this Conte calcio verticale into Lukaku. Then the players play off them, and then they create their chances, and it's working really, really well. And that is, I think, is the biggest secret, really, to their kind of improved offensive output recently, because they are starting to improve attacking with their attacking. But also, we're seeing, like, Politano scored a brilliant goal to equalise. I mean, I think Karnaseki probably should have stood up. I would put a little bit of that on compared. What a strike! And then Neres, he got an assist and a hockey assist for with the 2 goals. Brilliant flick to set up Anguissa to cut it back for them, and McTominay, that was brilliant. And then, of course, there's McTominay. I mean, kind of like, what a signing, he's been. And another big goal for the 2-1. It's his 5th goal, Serie A goal of the season. I've said it. I think he should be hitting double figures by the end of the season. I think he can hit double figures. He's such a great finisher, McTominay. Like, his if he has a chance, he's one of the best midfield finishers in the game. So clinical, and he obviously has that great understanding of making those kind of Frank Lampard runs into the box and finding himself in the scoring positions like the one he scored from. So, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And then of
What I
course,
liked particularly about Napoli in this game was again the midfield. The way that Lobotka, uh, how they go, this kind of, it's like a triangle in midfield that reverses depending on where the ball is and the way that they move. In the sense that it's a kind of, sometimes it's a double pivot with Anguissa and Lobotka, but then he becomes the tip of the triangle. Anguissa goes to the left. McTominay centralizes. I mean, and they overload spaces to create these new numerical advantages to play Lukaku with his back against the goal and create space for themselves and saw themselves through, like exactly which is very textbook of calcio of Conte's calcio verticale, the verticalization of the ball and movement of the players on a string. It's very, very rigid. It's very, very system based, and it's something that when it works, it's it's a marching band. It's just, every single player hits every time, run perfectly. The ball, like, it's not. It's such a safe in the sense that it's a difficult football to play because it takes a lot out of the players to keep drumming like that. But it's a very safe, quote unquote, way of playing in the sense that you will always create chances this way. And Conte understands that. Um, and given the fact that he also creates not just chances, but he creates chances in the right positions. And that's why I think someone like McTominay is really, really benefited this season from, is the sense that the chances he gets are all in the right position. They're in that, like, centrally towards the goal, which is where you want to have goal scoring chances, because there's a higher chance of scoring them in terms of XG. Nothing's left to chance here. It's really, really interesting to see, and it's a different kind of calcio vertical. It's not like he used to play at Inter, because it's the Inter one that he played, this transition from a 3-5-2 to a 4-2-4. Here he's already kind of playing a 4-2-3-1, so it's much more fluid in the sense that you start in a 4-2 or 4-2-3-1, you go to a 3-4-2-1, and you overload and you create. And it's very interesting to see the way that he does it. And he's tweaked. He really has updated. He which he's been kind of criticized for in the past, of not being, he's been too rigid. But it's still his system. It's still his way of playing football, but there's a tweak to it. And Romelu Lukaku, you know, he's never going to be the player he was once more. But what he is very good at is playing his goal is with his back against the goal, hold up play, link up play. And he doesn't need to be the player in the box. He doesn't need to be that player. What he can do is he drifts out, he pulls defenders out of position. He wins that challenge 9 times out of 10. He plays it out to the midfield or the wide player, and then they overload. That in and of itself creates havoc in the defense. And if you also, for example, like for the winner, have defensive horror shows like you had from Isak Hien, who just, when he's dragged out of position, is a liability, like with Anguissa's cross. I mean, doesn't close him, is anywhere nowhere near where he should be to close him down. And then Scalvini, who, I mean, I don't know what that was. I don't think he would have won the aerial challenge against Lukaku anyway, but that is an abysmal intervention by him. So, when you create these movements, when you create these overloads, you drag defenders out of position, and the risk of them making a mistake, and for you to create that fraction of a second that you need to score, that increases. And Conte is that kind of a coach. He plays the odds, and that's why, despite maybe not creating as much, they scored 3 times. It was a very system-based performance. It was actually very, very interesting game to watch. And for entertainment-wise, I think it was, after Inter Juve, probably the most entertaining game I've seen this season. I thought it was very, very entertaining.
Yeah, it was. And like I said, big win for Napoli. It's one of the kind of black marks against them this season, and also one of the question marks on whether they can go on and win the Scudetto was their kind of bad record against the big teams. They hadn't beaten any of the top 5 before this match. They'd lost at home to Atalanta, drawn with Inter, drawn with Juventus, lost both games to Lazio in the league and the Coppa Italia. So, then they go behind in this game, and you're thinking, well, can Napoli do it against the big teams? So this was very, very important for them, and of course they do have Juventus this weekend as well. So yeah, massive. The tension now turns to obviously the transfer market with Napoli, and it's going to be massive. The last fortnight of the window, last kind of 2 weeks of the window, is going to be huge for Napoli, because obviously they do need to get a Kvaratskhelia replacement. I think that one of the weaknesses Napoli have this season is they really do lack depth. It's actually incredible, really, their lack of depth in their team, especially midfield. I mean, if you look below Anguissa, Lobotka, and McTominay, their next subs are Billy Gilmore and Philip Billin. So it's pretty incredible, really, and it shows kind of, well, of course you can get away with a lack of depth more when you're only playing in Serie A. Like if they had this squad in a European season, they would struggle badly and they wouldn't be able to cope. But also, kind of, they're really like a couple of injuries away from really being in trouble. Like if they lose one or two of those midfielders, they're going to start dropping points. So they are playing a little bit with fire there, and that kind of heightens the need to bring in players. And obviously, they need a Kvaratskhelia replacement. They're going in for the latest reports are that they are going to make an improved bid for Garnacho at Man United. They really do want him. I still think that's a difficult deal to do, because I think that the gap between what Napoli are prepared to pay and what Man United are asking for is too much. Their latest bid, I think, is up to around about 50 million euros, and United are asking more 70 to 80. It's a huge gap. I don't know, unless Garnacho gets involved. I mean, United are in crisis at the moment. They just lost at home to Brighton. Whether that plays into it, I don't know. But he's the target. Otherwise, they're going to have to look for alternatives. I think they need another centre midfielder, and they are going for another centre midfielder. According to Nicola Skira, not only will they sign a Kvara replacement, but they want a centre midfielder, and they want another defender. I mean, it's incredible. They've been playing with Juan Jesus for quite a while now. So Skira says they plan to sign all of these. If they get the right players in these three positions, then that also strengthens them for the Scudetto as well.
If not, then Pope Antonius Contius, the first of Naples, as I call him now, when he was recanting God and God's will after the game, demands it. I mean, just listen to this fantastic quote. This is Conte at his absolute peak. He was asked on Sky about, Di Marzio asked him about Kvaratskhelia, about Hvicha, like replacements, blah, blah, blah. And he says, if the club asks, I'll share my opinion. We're not talking here about signing talented youngsters. Talented youngsters to do what? We're going to sign a youth team player? If you're going to do something, you have to do it right. Let's not make people laugh. Things must go the way God commands. Otherwise, we remain as we are.
It's Conte.
I mean, he's invoking higher power. He's invoking God, and I mean, that Conte is like very religious. He's very Catholic, and he this is when he's in this mode. Expect fireworks if he doesn't get what he wants. Like, he will burn everything down if he doesn't get what he wants. That is a clear message to everyone that needed to hear it as to what he expects from now until the end of the window.
Yeah.
Either get me what I want or shut up and let me work. And if you don't let me work, if you don't get me what I want, I'm going to be very, very cranky at the end of the season if we don't win the Serie A.
Yeah.
Like that is a clear...
I think it's fair, to be honest, because like I said, I don't think people realise how, like, the depth in attack. There's a few more options in attack, although they've now obviously lost Kvara, but they still at least have the likes of Simeone and Raspadori, who is also potentially could leave. It's not impossible in January. So they do have a few more options in attack, but the midfield and the defence, I mean, the options that they've got, I mean, I want to say they're lucky that they haven't got any injuries. But I guess, when you play once a week, generally it's a lot easier to keep players fit. So that's kind of part of it. But they do need players. If they want to, Conte's put Napoli in a position really to challenge for the Scudetto now. And if they don't, go out and buy the players they should buy, they've really have blown that opportunity because they do need players. There's no doubt about it. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about this from the Atalanta point of view. I think we both said, title chance is probably over. I mean, they're 7 behind Napoli, and that will be the same behind Inter if Inter win the game in hand as well. And the bad form, they've hit bad form at the wrong time. 4 without a win in Serie A, and they've not won in 2025 because obviously they lost the Supercoppa as well. And I think we've probably seen in this bad run kind of what Atalanta are lacking in terms of the Scudetto. The defending really has let them down. It's really throughout this great Gasperini reign, and that team has changed, and he's redeveloped it so many times. It's always been the one constant throughout is that they've never had, personnel-wise, they've never had a Scudetto winning defence or even close to it. They've always had at least one cog in that defence that's just shouldn't be in a team challenging for the Scudetto. And they concede too many goals. I mean, 24 goals conceded in 21 Serie A games is, you're not going to win the Scudetto conceding that many. 10 more than Napoli, which kind of, I guess, in reference to this game, that kind of shows the difference really with these two teams, doesn't it? That they can't defend like Napoli or like a Scudetto team, and yeah, they're struggling in defence because Kusanu's out for 3 months. Scalvini had a really bad game in this match. He was caught out badly on the third goal, and all the goals came from his side as well. So he really struggled. I think Atalanta need to sign a centre back in January, but the defending in general, is kind of what's probably it's stopping the bigger in terms of the bigger picture. It's what's holding Atalanta back.
Yeah, I mean, like I said about Gian and Scalvini for that last goal, I don't want to repeat myself. It's a little bit like that. I do think, and we have talked about that. My issue with them has not been depth in attack. I think they have phenomenal depth in attack. My issue is that behind Ederson and behind there's not enough depth, and above all, that defense is not good enough. And even though we see them do play defensively solid at times, and they can do in one-off games defend solidly, there's still this. There is, over time, the lack of quality and individual quality shows itself, and I think we saw that against Napoli, especially from defensively, from Hien, who when he's dragged out of position is just not quick enough. He's too reactive and he gives too much space, and you can't do that to someone like Anguissa. And Scalvini, okay, he had a brain fart, but all throughout the game he did not. He was just not of the standard. The others, Jim City, and I don't know the rest of them, they're just not good enough. And I think it's probably that is what they need to work on. If they can keep all their players in the summer again, if they can keep all players, and I think barring
Lookman will leave.
Yeah, barring Lookman, which is not just, but barring Lookman, I think they have a good chance to keep most of their players, unless somebody comes in and breaks the bank for Marcus Thuram or Vlahovic, or like for stupid money. Then I think where Retegui could be in
I think Ederson's is the other one that's at risk because there's so much interest.
Ederson is just
Ederson's the big risk. But yeah, I mean, I hear your point. I think that soft underbelly in defence, but it's always been the lack of individual quality. I mean, even when they were like seconds away from the Champions League semi-final and probably the Champions League final, I mean, they were doing that with defenders like Palomino, Jim City. I mean, it's unbelievable. Even though they had all those special players in front of them, like Ilicic. I know he wasn't playing in that game, but Ilicic and Papu Gomez and those incredible wing backs that they had. They still had Palomino and Jim City in defence. So
which is kind of weird because they should be able to scout better defenders. Like
mm,
it's a strange one. But then again,
it's like they only ever want to scout the
no,
midfield
I
and
think it's
attack.
got to do with Gasperini's system as well. I mean, he likes to play man-man across the pitch, and the players that he signs works in that. But the defenders that he gets, I still think that you should be able to get better defenders, regardless of
That's
how
what I
you.
mean. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I mean. It's
yeah,
almost like the focus doesn't seem to be on finding these special
yeah,
defenders. It seems to be more on midfield and attack.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate. And Atalanta they just need to get back on track, and
I just need to.
they're in a solid position for top four, but they have to be a little bit careful because 6 points from Juventus. I mean, it's not. They just have to be a bit careful, but they should be
Yeah,
fine.
they should be mindful.
Yeah,
I
they should
guess
be
is what I would
mindful.
say.
Yeah, I mean, the positives are that Retegui is back.
Yeah, I was
He's
just
back.
gonna go
I
to
mean,
him.
what a goal!
That
That
is
goal is absolutely something. That's not even. In fact, I'll tell you what it is. The XG for that chance is 0.07, and the way that he turns and rifles that left foot, that's Batistuta. That's a Batistuta like goal. That is.
Vieri Batistuta. This kind of thing where you get the ball you get the ball with the back against the goal, you make your own room space by power and quickness, and then that finish, which is a rifle. It's that is a world-class goal by
Mm,
a top center forward. And he was very lively throughout, and I thought that for me, that goal is the difference between Retegui this season and every other season we've seen him. The fact that his movement, his play with his back against the goal, his ability to create his own space, um, and to also put others into position as well. Because if you look at that movement when he grabs the ball, he kind of immediately moves left and he drags two players with him, which opens up space centrally for the rebound as well if that were to come
yeah.
through. I mean, that is stuff he didn't used to do before. That Gasperini has developed him, and as far as I'm concerned, for Italy, there is no discussion about who starts. It is Moise Kean and Retegui together. It's as simple as that. Right now, you cannot ignore them. They have to. Spalletti has to make it work between them. Like he has to somehow make it work. Because right now, Moise Kean and Retegui are scoring 25 goals between them in Serie A
Yeah.
alone, and it's just and
Yeah,
and one.
no, I mean, I thought Retsugi's first half, especially, was almost perfect. Like
Yeah,
even
it
like his
was,
link-up play,
which has
and
been outstanding. It's never been like this. I mean,
well,
it
yeah. I
really is
mean,
a player taking the next step in
he's had a
quality.
great week. I mean, he scored the equaliser against Juventus with
Mm,
another kind of real opportunistic
yeah,
finish and a great finish with his head. Yeah, he's top scorer of Serie A, and I think that injury's actually done him good
yeah, he
because
rested.
it's given him a chance to rest because he was overplayed at the start of the season and he had a bad run for like a month or so, month and a half, where he didn't look right, and then he had the injury, and now he looks back and he looks fresh and fit. So he was great.
I mean, Atalanta are out of the Scudetto race, but the Capocannoniere race is very much on between him
Him
and
and Turam,
Lucas
yeah,
Thuram, yeah.
yeah.
And
One,
let's not count out Moise Kean. I mean, he's not that far behind.
no, that's going to be an exciting race. Do want to give a shout out for Lookman for his piece of skill for his goal. The flick around Di Lorenzo was absolutely
Mm,
gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. He got a bit lucky after that. It was kind of bad. It was actually bad defending for Napoli. We should point that out. That wasn't good defending for that goal.
no,
Di Lorenzo sold himself, although it
wait,
was an
he's cheap.
amazing bit of skill. And then they didn't defend it very well after that. They kind of gave it back to him, and then the shot was a bit lucky. He took a deflection through the legs and went into the corner. But his first touch, like this guy, Lookman's first touch, is just unbelievable.
The
It's like
thing that I
one of
find
the best first touches in the game.
the thing that I find so impressive with Ademola Lookman is, for me, when I look at a player and I see that he's improved and taken the next step, one of the things I look at is how high is his lowest level. Well, Ademola Lookman had a horrible first half, and he had a pretty crap game overall, but he still manages to do important things like that goal and
Mm.
be decisive, and that's how you know a player has taken this leap in quality. When even when they're having a shit day, they make assists and goals. When they take that leap in quality and are proven to be important for their teams, even when they're having a bad day. And
Mm.
it's that's what Lookman is now. I think Lookman he's at that level where even when things aren't working, he's going to get a goal or an assist or both, even in a bad game where his overall play isn't clicking. And that's so impressive to see. And it's another player who was discarded by in England in the Premier League, who came to Gasperini, and Gasperini's rehabilitated him and made him into a fantastic world class
Absolutely.
player.
Let's move on to Juventus and Milan, which was the other massive game of the weekend. This one for the race for the top four, and another huge result. Juventus win 2-0, which it was a must-win game for Juventus in the race for the top four. And this was a really positive performance from Juventus. The first half was so. Juventus controlled the game, but actually Milan had the better chances. They had the big chances in the first half. But the second half, especially the first half of the second half, if that makes sense, first 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the second half, Juventus just blew Milan away with their desire, with their intensity, with their pressing, forcing Milan into mistakes, turning it over in the Milan half, and then making them pay, creating chances, and it was performances, a very positive performance for Juventus and a very positive week, because the performances against Atalanta and Milan um, were the kind of performances that we need to see more of Juventus. And the first kind of 20-25 minutes of the second half was really the Juventus that Motta we need to see from Thiago Motta now for the rest of the season. But what separated Juventus and Milan most in this game, this is something that Sergio Conceição said at the end of the game, was Juventus just seemed to want this more than Milan. And Milan were too passive at the start of the second half, and Juventus, they just wanted it. They had more desire, they had more intensity, and that's really what won the game, more so than quality, if I can be honest, because you know the team, the strike force of Juventus in this game. I mean, with all due respect, at the start, after Yildiz came off injured, at the start of the second half, Umbangula, Timothy Weah, and Nico Gonzalez playing out of position as a false nine. I mean, on paper, I mean that's it's not the again, with all due respect, that's not a Juventus attack at all. It's way off what a Juventus attack should be. But they wanted it more than Milan, and that's what I think was the difference, really.
Yeah, look, I agree with that. I think the second half was a Juve that looked like it had more edge, more bite. They were certainly helped by woeful Milan defending for the second goal, uh, definitely then. But regardless, it was a Juve that felt in the second half that they played with more purpose in the final third, with a clear identity, and they had more profondità, depth. They were sharper, and that's why I think that proved to be decisive. The first half felt like a little bit like two boxers, just the first three rounds in a game in a match where they don't really do anything, they just spar. Do you know what I mean? But the second half, it felt like Juventus went for the knockout, and they managed to do that because Milan made so many individual errors and were unbalanced, surprisingly so. I'd say. I think Conceição may have misread this game in how he might wanted to handle it, but I thought Juve just looked more sharper, more controlled, more. The more the game went on, the more that kind of increased. And they didn't. They just followed their game plan. It was as if Juventus went a little bit back to basics. They didn't overcomplicate things in the second half in attack, and I think that's what kind of won it for them.
Yeah, no, I think that there was a lot of, well, first of all, on Motta, I agree. Look, Motta definitely outcoached Conceição in this game, and this was a tactical victory for Motta. There was lots of like little details in this game that made the difference, which were the influence of Motta can be seen in some of the positional play. I'll give you an example, which has been all over social media. In the second goal, when Mbangula wins the ball, and then it comes to Thuram, and Thuram is striding forward, and Nico Gonzalez just basically puts his body in the way between Fofana, who's trying to get back to get it back off Thuram and the ball, and basically blocks Fofana, and then that allows Thuram to basically get away unchallenged, and then the pass, and then Weah scores. Now that's an example. Like Nico Gonzalez in this game was very kind of unheralded, underrated in this game. Like his tactical positions he was taking up in dropping deep, kind of dragging the Milan centre backs away, and that was certainly the influence of Thiago Motta. Nico Gonzalez was very, very intelligent in this game with his off the ball, his movement off the ball, dragging players away and creating those spaces that usually haven't been there for Juventus this season. And that's on Motta, that is, and it's also on kind of the Milan defenders and Conceição for kind of falling for it. But that's Motta. So I do have to praise Motta. Also, obviously, his substitution of Weah at half time. I know it was enforced because there was an injury for Yildiz, but that really did also change the game. Added that kind of aggression and
directness. They were much more
which Milan
directness.
struggled
They had
with.
more depth centrally, because he's much more of a player who just runs forward, isn't he?
He unsettled Milan. He unsettled them. No doubt about it. Milan defenders don't like to defend. I know it sounds. We'll come to Milan. We'll come to Milan. I don't want to start on Milan now, but he unsettled Milan. I have to praise a few players. Mbangula for starters. I mean, what a surprise success he has been this season. At the start of the season, he started and he scored, didn't he, in the first game? Because he was an unknown completely. Because Juventus were completely decimated at the start in attack. They hadn't even completed their transfer market because of Giuntoli, and he had to play in that first game, and he scored against Como. I'll be honest, and I think most people agree, I thought it was just a flash. I thought that this has come from desperation. He's played well. He's just fitted kind of the Motta, because Motta is kind of a system coach in that sense. I very much doubted that he could be a Juve level player. And maybe he still isn't. I don't know. But he's really, the last month or so, he's been really, really good. And you know what? Technically, he's very, very good technically and tactically. The way that he connects with his teammates, he plays the 1-2s, he comes off the wing. He's good in tight space. He's got really good ball control. He seems to carry out, what Motta wants from him. And he's been a really surprise success, and it's a great story. We'll see whether he's going to be good enough for Juventus, but he's been really good recently. He's probably been Juventus's most consistent attacker over the last month, because he's been consistently kind of what you're going to get from him, and that is again talking about Motta, and obviously how he hasn't succeeded, as you said. That has been one of his success stories this season. He has kind of developed these next gen players like Mbangula and Savona in particular,
and Yildiz as well. But it's but what I like about Mbangula is this he makes these intelligent runs. He plays well beyond his years, in the sense that he always makes his decision making is very, very spot on. And the fact that he knows when to invert, he knows when to make those runs deep, he knows when to centralize, he knows when to go wide, and that in and of itself wreaks havoc in the opposition's defense. He's a very well schooled footballer, in the sense
I agree completely.
It's
I agree with that, and I think that also helps Juventus to be a little bit more unpredictable, because one of the biggest criticisms this season is the Juventus have been generally so sterile, so predictable when it gets into the final third. Players almost, which is crazy for Motta, but players just sticking rigidly to their position. The kind of criticisms that I've had for Allegri, players just sticking on their positions, but the last week, I hope Juventus have turned the corner, because we saw against Atalanta, even more so against Atalanta, especially. But the three attackers, or the three, let's say the outside attackers and the central striker, kind of, and the central trequartista rather. But even Nico, because he was, like I said before, he was coming deep as well. All switching positions, all moving around, and Bangula does that really well. He comes off the left, but he moves over to the centre, to the right, like you said, he inverts. But Weah was doing it, like he scored his goal. He was playing on the right, but he scored his goal from the left. And the players moving around, and that just makes things a little bit more unpredictable. It drags defenders out of position a little bit more. And I think that's why Juventus have looked better also offensively in these last two games. Also, it's because they're playing against two teams who open up more. So we'll see, Juventus, how they will play against teams that the smaller teams who are just going to sit back and defend, and whether the same problems will persist. That will be another test, and maybe it will be more difficult. But I hope Juventus have turned the corner there, and Motta is kind of tactically, that they are a little bit more. A little bit more complete in that sense. But yeah, Mangula was really good. Weah was good. I thought Coop Miners, this is more of the Coop Miners we want to see. More so,
Right
he was
direction.
just more involved. Like he had many more touches that he usually gets. He had many more shots. I think he had 4 shots in this game. Should have scored one. Bad miss. But he was, passing. He was just
Look
involved.
more lively, and I think the reason for that is that he doesn't have this statue in front of him from Serbia named Dusan Vlahovic, because when you have Nico Gonzalez playing as a false nine, when you have players who are actually who move and are mobile and know how to pass and link up, then he also becomes much more useful, and I think that's part of what it was, mainly. But I have to say, for me, Weston McKennie, this was again a fantastic performance by him. He continues to just be so useful. I think honestly this season, I think he's been one of Juve's most consistent performers. And I think there is a role for him at Juve.
You know what
Without a
I
doubt.
think? He was really, really good. He had a really, really good week. Did a really good job on Liao.
Mm.
Although he did get caught out by Teo on one of the big chances, on the big Liao chance when Di Gregorio made the great save. But he 1-on-1 against Liao, really, really good. And second half, Liao did absolutely nothing. I think, and I've always said this, I think McKennie's best position is fullback. I think, well, let me put it this way. I think his best qualities suit playing at fullback. I mean, I know he's been playing there, but I would keep him there, even if it's
Yeah.
just as a backup, or because he doesn't. My issue with him, he doesn't have the technique and the passing and the short game and the ability on the ball to play as a central midfielder for a top club. That's always been my issue with him. He's
Mm.
just not. He's just not
No,
suitable for that,
that's fair.
especially not in a multiplayer. But at fullback, well, he's good at one-on-ones. He is good on one-on-ones. You have players running at him. Generally, he does pretty well. Like, it's not easy to beat him on a one-on-one because he can run. He has pace. He's actually quite quick off the mark in the first few meters. He's tenacious. He's strong. He's strong physically. He's a bull, isn't he? Really, he can get up and down. He's got the stamina. Okay, yes, on the ball, some of his, he's not the best, but I think as a fullback, and he played right back in this game, which again was another something else I have to praise Motta for. He switched McKennie from left back to right back, put Cambiaso at left back because he knew that McKennie 1-on-1 against Leao would do a better job than Cambiaso, who's a little bit more kind of standoffish and laid back and with his concentration and everything, and that was the right choice by Motta. But I think McKennie as a fullback, I think that's his future. And I don't mind having McKennie around as a fullback at Juventus. I don't want him as a centre midfielder though.
Mm. No, I think he's just useful when he plays, because of his dynamism and tenacity, and also because of the fact that he's very strong. Like, he's a guy who you don't. He's a pain in the butt to get around, and if you have him marking you, he annoys you, and he sticks on you. I think he's a useful, serviceable player, and I think he's found his role at Juve. I think this season he's been really, really good. And yeah, no, look, the thing is, when you have such a player that is such a utility man that can function in many different roles and can do so that's important for a squad to have. It creates a kind of sense of security, and that's what Juve need at this point. I think this Juve squad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's talk about Milan, and then we'll come on to the transfer market for both teams. So yeah, as I said with Juventus, I thought, look, first half, I actually thought Milan were pretty good in terms of an away performance. Juventus were dominating possession. I think they had something like 68% possession in the first half, Juventus. But Milan were the more dangerous team. They created the bigger chances, and they had at least two big chances for Leao and Teo, which probably should have scored. And Juventus were forced to do some really important blocks. Kalulu did a couple of them. I should praise Kalulu, by the way. He was fantastic. And I should have praised Locatelli and Thuram as well. I thought they were really good. But yeah, coming on to Milan, I thought first half they actually did all right as an away performance. But the second half, they were shocking. They were absolutely shocking. As I said, that first 20 to 25 minutes from Milan was unacceptable. Yes, Juventus were really good. They were really intense. But the way that Milan folded, that wasn't a Conceição Milan at all. That was a team that looked really feeble and fragile, and they just couldn't stand up to Juventus. They just weren't up for the fight. They didn't want it, which Conceição said at the game. They didn't have the desire. They just folded like a pack of cards. It was bad. And the defending as well, like you said before, just not good enough.
This is something we need to talk about because I have a broader point I want to make. Tomori, Pavlovic, look, this is an issue now. It's been going on for many a season with Tomori especially. He cannot defend. He doesn't know how to defend. And the decision making of him to let Weah past him the way that he does, that is his corner. Yes, I do think the ball is so close to Mignon. I think Mignon should be able to react to it. A goalkeeper of his quality.
Yeah.
It's not I wouldn't blame. I think the majority of that goal blame goes on Tomori. What is he doing? It was awful. And it keeps happening over and over again. Milan need to sign central defenders that know how to defend. Unless they want to play Gabbia and Thiaw. Like Malik Thiaw. Which can work in a Conceição system, but isn't ideal. And then I was talking to a friend who's a Milan fan, and he was like, well, Milan need to do lots of things. Milan need to buy midfield. We need to have depth in midfield. Milan need to buy strikers. Milan need to buy defense. And I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is what? When was Maldini sacked? A year and a half ago? And a year and a half into the project, you've had 3 coaches, and your list of shit to do is longer than Santa's Christmas list. That is on you. You failed as a director and owner at that point. When year and a half into your new project, the things you need to do to fix the problems at the club is longer than it was when you took over.
Well, yeah, it can't be every coach's fault if they all can't defend. But I mean, especially Conceição, whose Porto was one of the best defences around.
But it's not just one thing; it is many things.
Well, listen, I think with the defence, I think it comes down to 2 things. It comes down, number one, something that I've been saying for a long time now, is Milan don't defend as a team, as a unit. If we take it, the defence, but also the whole team, because you defend as a team. It's not just down to your defence. Now, the first 2 goals, there are gaping holes. Obviously, the final player in the goal is, from Milan's point of view, is well, before Magnon is Tomori. But to get to that stage, Tomori's 1-on-1 in gaping acres of space. It's a 1-on-1 between Weah and Tomori, which he should never have got to that stage. That's a failure as Milan as a unit, defensive unit, and as a team for it to get to that stage. Now, once it gets to that stage, I thought Tomori's defending was terrible. Leao, keep calling him Leao now. Weah's didn't really do much. He just kind of moved the ball onto his left, and Tomori, it was too easy. Like it was too easy to create the space for his left foot shot. And then once he had the shot, I thought it was terrible from Maignan personally. But anyway, it got to that stage. It got to that stage through Fofana, first of all, in midfield, just losing such an easy ball to Mbangula. And then there's that problem of the gaping hole in front of the defence, between the defence and the midfield, which I've talked about. Milan just don't have a player that plugs that hole. Thuram gets to run in, or the ball gets played through that corridor. There's no one there. That's been Milan's problem for such a long time. They need to sign a defensive midfielder. That's someone like Ricci or someone that can actually plug that hole. So there's that problem there. Then you have the defensive unit, which just isn't a unit. It hasn't been. Milan seem to lack team defenders. I think Gabbia is probably the only one.
That's a team
Maybe
defender.
Emerson.
I think
maybe
Thiaw as well. I think Thiaw and Emerson are also.
Even Thiaw has brain farts. He doesn't.
He does.
I don't think so. No, I think the only one that actually holds their position out of the centre backs is Gabbia. And then as for Teo Hernandez, I mean, the guy cannot defend. I mean, before he got very lucky before the first goal. Did you see how he just got tackled in his own area? Was it by Koopmeiners? And then Koopmeiners had the Koopmeiners should have scored. That was a bad miss. And that would have been all on Teo Hernandez. He would have got crucified for that, but he got away with that one. I mean, these are players that they're just not. They're just not team defenders.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. I think with Teo, I think he, because of the fact that Milan can't defend as a team, his deficiencies defensively get magnified. Because if you remember when under Pioli, when they actually knew how to defend as a team, when they played Teao Inshallah, then you didn't see that because you had a structure in place that covered for that when they won the Scudetto. The problem, of course, is that you can't play. That's not a sustainable way of playing. But it is a problem because I don't think that they got the players defensively. I would focus on defenders. If you can cash in on Fikayo Tomori, I would cash in on Fikayo Tomori. He doesn't seem like Conceição believes in Pavlovic too much, which is fair enough. I mean, every coach has their preferred players and how they want to play. But regardless, they need to have two starting defenders who know how to function in a team, and they need to find a balance in midfield to help the team out. Right now,
I think they lack the players, and trying to bring in those kind of defensive players, and I'm including that defensive midfielder, which they're crying out for, holding midfielder. I think is, especially in mid-season, going to be difficult. So it's going to. Conceição said
if this season is a write-off, I think they should just focus on going as far as possible in the Champions League and the Coppa Italia, and try to fix.
I have faith in Conceição. I wouldn't call it a write-off, but they're in a position. I mean, they're in a difficult position. They've got a lot of work to do for the top four. I mean, they're only 3 points behind Juventus if they win their game in hand. So and Juventus have got Napoli this weekend, which it's going to be you'd favour Napoli obviously at home. So
but they're 8 points behind.
But they're 8 points behind Lazio, but they have a game in hand there. The question on who gets the top four, I mean, is an interesting one. I mean, it's obviously advantage Juventus over Milan, but as I said, Milan can easily recoup that. But Lazio are dangerous, and they've opened up a gap there. So I think the rest of the transfer window is going to be key for both Juventus and for Milan. Milan will come on to Kyle Walker in a minute. Are they going to bring him in? But like you said, they probably need other players as well.
And that's exactly an indictment on this management, who off the pitch, I think Jerry Cardinale and Redbird do fantastic things. I agree with them on a lot of things, and modernization, marketing, growth, that's brilliant. But on the pitch, you're 1.5 years into your project post Maldini, and the shopping list of things that need to be done is longer than Santa's Christmas list. This is unacceptable behavior. You have clearly hired people that don't know what they're doing. You can think what you want about Maldini and Massara, but they were far more competent than this lot.
I agree with you. The bigger picture, I'm totally in agreement with you. The only thing I would say, just put the other side. Milan were decimated by injuries in this game. I mean, Morata was out, Pulisic was out, Thiaw was out, but more importantly, the number of bench players who were out that could have come in. I mean, have a look at Milan's bench for this game. It's horrific. They had no one to come on, basically, to come on and change the game or to improve them. You know, they bring up the players they're going to bring on in a game like this are going to weaken the team. And that's a position that Juventus have found themselves in for quite a lot of this season as well, in that they've only had like a couple of outfield players and you know, they can't strengthen the team. That does play a role, a big role. So, you know, I wouldn't over panic with Milan. I mean, I think Conceição's made a good start. Obviously, beat Juventus and Inter in the Super Cup and won. He won one and drew one before this game, and the draw that he had, Milan had an XG of something like 3 or something in that game. So they should have had 2 wins from 2 in Serie A come into this game. But they've had a bad game here. They've had a bad game. So, you know, I think when they get their injured players back, they'll be a much better team. They're not going to play Juventus away every single week. I wouldn't over panic, but in terms of the overall picture, like you're saying, the bigger picture and where Milan should be, because Milan shouldn't be fighting, sweating to get into the top 4. They shouldn't be. That's a failure. So in terms of the bigger picture, you're 100% in agreement with you. It's not good enough. And the gaps that are in the team are a representation of the failure of the management. So I think that's my kind of nuanced, to use a word I hate, take on things. Yeah, not good enough for Milan at all. And I just want to say one other thing about Milan, just before we talk about Walker. Magnon's a really strange one this season, especially in using it because he goes from in the same game making magnificent saves to save Milan, world-class saves like he did last week, to then making just complete blunders later on in the same game and costing him. It's very weird how
That's been like
inconsistent he's been within the same matches this
But
season.
that's been like it's been like this for years now since the Scudetto and the injury. I mean, he's done it. This is unfortunately this streak of inconsistency that he shows is not new. And one thing though, where I'm not too concerned about him is that I think that he's trying to address it. I think that the second Juve goal shows that he knows he's got a problem in the near post, so he tries to overcompensate for it. And if he had an actual competent defender, that shot doesn't go in the far post; it's blocked by the defender. But he will look at that and feel that okay, I need to cover my near post, but I can't just let go of the far post. I mean, those are things that I think he'll fix in training. But yeah, this has been a long, this has been a long time an issue since the Scudetto, that he he performs miracles and then goes out and makes the most howlers all in one same game, and I think that's also something that causes insecurities. It doesn't exactly help Milan either, but I'm not too worried. I think he should be the captain. I think I think they should finally just rip that band-aid off. I don't think Theo should be the captain. I think Mike Mignon should be the captain. I think he's a leader. I think he's someone they should build around. And I think he should permanently be the captain, and I think they should build around him as a leadership, as a leader in the dressing room, and just believe in him, because I think that will pay off in the long run. I think Magnon's positives more than outweigh his negatives right now. And if and I think he will be able to address them. I really think so. But it's not exactly where Milan are right now. It's not good to have your goalkeeper do this time and time again. But I'm not too worried. I'm
Yeah.
really not. With
Let's
Mignon, I'm not too worried.
let's talk about Kyle Walker. So that deal is almost certainly going to be done now. He's Kyle Walker from Manchester City. He asked to leave City just over a week ago, and he has agreed terms with Milan. Milan and Manchester City are now in pretty much advanced talks over how the deal is going to be done. Is it going to be a loan, 6-month loan with an obligation to buy or an option to buy? But it's a deal that's going to be done. Kyle Walker is going to join Milan, and it's an interesting one really for Milan, because they do need defenders, as we've discussed in this show. They need defenders, But is he the right man? I mean, he's had a bad season. Obviously, look, legendary player for me in the last decade. He's been consistently one of the best right backs in world football. One of the fastest defenders in the game. One of the few players that takes out Kylian Mbappe every time he plays against him. He's been a fantastic player from a defensive point of view. Been a fantastic player. But this season, he's been a bit of a disaster. He's looked like he started to show his age. I know a lot of the Man City players have been in the same boat there, and it's not just him, but he really has struggled. In fact, even earlier back in 2024, like he didn't have a very good Euros. He struggled at the Euros as well, and he even finding himself out of position, and he's never been the best going forward. So the question is, are Milan signing a player that's really past his best, or way past his best, even based on this season's performance, or are they signing someone who will still be able to do it in Serie A and is going to bring the experience and tighten up that Milan defence that really needs tightening up? What do you think, Nima?
I mean, again, Calabria. Okay, Emerson Royal has been all right defensively. Calabria is just not good enough. I think we know that. And you're bringing in Kyle Walker with a big question mark around him again. Look, it's again, I don't know what to make of it. I really don't know what to make of it, because it's not an ideal situation, and I feel that Milan are taking unnecessary financial risks here, instead of actually correctly addressing the problem. But then again, you can say, well, okay, someone like Kyle Walker, he brings experience. Constantly, he's a fighter. He's very mentally strong. He's a winner. He knows what it takes to win the biggest trophies at club level football, and that's the kind of mentality you need in the dressing
He has the
room.
right mentality, yeah. Like he
Yeah,
wants to defend, like what we were saying. Like Milan
yeah.
defenders don't want to defend; they don't like defending. He likes to defend, and he actually, he stopping tackling a defender, like he lives for that. Stopping a player going past him. He wants to defend. Players like Teo don't want to defend. The interesting thing for me is kind of where will Kyle Walker play, because I've seen a lot of suggestions that they're actually not signing him as a right back. They're signing him as a centre back,
Fine by me. Fine by me.
which is, I mean, interesting, because when he has played as a centre back, it's always been the right side of a back three. I can't remember him playing in a back four, unless someone can correct me that's listening. I don't remember him ever playing in a back four. I always remember.
You know what I think it is? I think they're going to play him as a right, like they can play him. I think Milan are going to invert, in the sense that Teo. I think Conceição understands that Teo's strength lay in attack, so you need someone who's quick enough to play as a right back in a back three when they invert, if you know what I mean, so that they become a back three when in possession.
Which means his starting role is but that means but maybe that could be it. But that means his starting role is as a right back, and that means Emerson, goodbye, you're out of the team. So
send your thoughts to Moncada. I mean, again, or Moncada.
I think if they buy him in as a right back, then Calabria has to go. Like Calabria goes in January. He goes before the end of the window. If you sign him as a centre back, then again, that if they're planning to sign him as a centre back, then that raises questions over whether they still want to sell Tomori. I know Milan or Conceição doesn't want him gone, but if they're signing him as a centre back, so there's a lot of strands to this. It's going to be interesting to see what their plans are with Kyle Walker. I can tell you, Kyle Walker wants to leave England for my understanding is also for being very highly publicised, his private life and all the stuff that's been going on. Pretty messy.
I have no idea about that.
Okay, well, probably best to keep it that way, because it's very messy. Between
what is it like? We're talking Kardashian drama.
So probably worse, actually.
That is impossible.
The English Kardashians.
Thank you. Excuse me. That is impossible.
Yeah. In fact, seeing how much you love the Kardashians.
Has his ex-wife gone out and said that Kyle Walker took sex videos of her and is threatening to spread?
No, but he's got. I want to get this right. He's definitely got at least one kid with a mistress.
Wanda has how many children with how many men? I'm sorry. What are you talking about?
Nima gets very defensive when
There
anybody
exists
tries
no
to
bigger
say
shit
that there's
show than
more
those
drama than
two. I'm sorry, but when she went out on Argentinian TV and said that Mauro Icardi has 200 sex videos of me and is sending them around to his friends, I didn't know. I thought I was daydreaming.
Okay, it's not that bad, but it's pretty messy. But anyway, I think he wants to leave England just to, get away from all this what is going
Yeah,
on
and
basically.
and in
And
Italy is a very right place to go to as well because they don't give a shit about your personal life unless you
unless
you
you're
know you
Wonder Icardi.
yeah. Well, unless you have children with if you unless you're that whatever that is, whatever that relationship is, if you don't do that, you're fine.
Hmm.
I think it's I think also he's at the point of his career where he's played in England his whole life. It's not you players want to try new things.
Mm.
It's there's worst fates in the world than to live in Milan and play for one of Inter and Milan. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're literally a superstar and you live in one of the
Mm.
coolest cities in the
We'll
world.
see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think Champions League it could be useful. Bringing in someone with that experience will help probably in the Champions League. But for Serie A, getting the top four, yeah, a lot will depend on how they use him, what their plans are for him, and also who else they bring in. Milan and Juventus to decide kind of who will finish ahead of who will finish ahead of the other team out of Juventus and Milan, and that might not even be enough because there's Lazio. But with Juventus, let's talk about Juventus because they're going to be very, very busy in the transfer market in the last 2 weeks. They've got a lot of work to do still. They still haven't signed a centre back. Excuse me, and they still haven't signed a centre forward. It's been a bit of a shambles, really. That Randall Kolo Muani, they spent weeks negotiating for the deal, and then only when the deal was done and he was in Turin and he was having his medical and about to start his first training session, they suddenly realised Juventus and PSG communicated with them that Randall Kolo Muani was unable to sign because PSG had loaned out too many players, and PSG actually have to bring back one of their players out on loan in order for this deal to go through, which is just farcical. It's farcical from PSG's side, of course,
Yeah, what the hell are they
but I'm
doing?
sorry though, those that are trying to remove blame from Giuntoli, I'm sorry. I'll repeat. He's had 3 months knowing that he's got to sign a striker in January. They've known this since October that they were going to sign a backup striker or another striker. Right? I'm sorry. You know everything. You should know the rules. You know about every player. You don't just go to a club and say, "Oh, I want to sign your player," and they say, "Okay." And then, is he eligible? Yes. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can't listen. I've been blaming Giuntoli for many things, and I think he deserved. But him not knowing having PSG's shit in order is not on him. But what I will tell you,
I would agree that it's more PSG by a long way. But I'm sorry, you've still got to know. If you're a top sporting director, you've got to know everything about who is if the player is available or not. I'm sorry, you've got to. You can't
no.
just trust the other side.
When it comes to certain things, yes, but the club not being able to loan out players because they've loaned out too many players, that's not on a third club's on another club's sporting director to know that. It would be awesome if he did knew that and he was that meticulous, but I can't blame that on him. My issue is that he's put Juventus in the shitter here because of Douglas Luiz and the failures that we've seen on him. Because the fact that Andrea Cambiaso is being linked to be sold for 65 million euros means Juve need money. They need to bring in money in order to spend. And he miscalculated. And Douglas Luiz is no one's paying. They're not going to recover what they made from him, at least not in January. There's no interest. The only interest is loan and they can't do another loss on him. So they're looking at someone where they have to make a massive plusvalenza and bring in lots of money in order to spend, and that's why you're seeing these Andrea Cambiaso.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. You've basically summed it up perfectly. And
this is on him. That is him shitting
it's a
the
total
bed.
disaster. Listen. When you're at the start of a project, and I tweet this out. When you're at the start of a project, or you're building a project, and you're trying to build a great team, right? What you do is it's pretty basic stuff. You work out who your core players are, and you build from that core. It's simple. So with Juventus, the core players would be Bremer, there would be Yildiz, and Cambiaso is part of that core. You do not, under any circumstances, sell these players. You do not do that. Also helps having a bit of an Italian core as well. It would be like Inter with Bastoni, Barella, Lautaro, selling one of those core players kind of like 3 or 4 years ago when they're trying to build the great Inter that's now been built. You just do not sell one of those core. If you do, then you're just not going to create a winning team. That's just not how you do it. And for this even to be a possibility, 2 weeks to go from the window, Cambiaso is your only left back. I mean, it's the fact that this is even a possibility. I mean, it seems as we're recording it, this is going to be difficult. David Ornstein, who is he's very good, has said that it's unlikely in this window. But Juventus and Man City, I know, have had talks about this. They've discussed it. An official bid hasn't come in, but they've had talks. So this is something Juventus are considering as a possibility, and for the reasons that you've said, Nima. But it's madness. I mean, it's a decision obviously to balance the books, but it's insanity. I mean, you sell Cambiaso, your chances of getting in the top four plummet massively. So you're making a 65 million or whatever it is. Well, you then need to go out and spend some of that money to bring in at least one left back, if not two. You already need a left back because he's the only left back you've got, unless you count Rui or maybe somebody out of position like McKennie. So you need to sign another left back. So you need to spend on another left back. But then you don't get in the Champions League. You're going to lose 100 million. So you're actually losing more. Then you've got sponsorship on top of that. So
This is what happens
it's absolute
when you
madness.
scramble.
They're in a complete sense of desperation, and it's just not
exactly.
it's just not a way you build a project at all. But
This
it
is
also
what
tells me
happens
something
when you
else, Nima.
scramble.
It also tells me one thing bigger even than Giuntoli and his failings. It's this. Exor and that prick John Elkann, that posh twat John Elkann, right? They don't care. He doesn't care about Juventus, about them being a successful football team at all. He doesn't care about
Well, of
football.
course he doesn't
All he
care.
cares about is that the books are balanced. Now he gets to January, Juventus books are not in a good state, and he just says, right, you've got to balance the books. Simple as that. I don't care if it means the team get weaker and the team don't qualify for the Champions League. Right now, you have got to balance the books right now. And I even wonder whether Elkan wants to sell. I know that's been. I wonder because I wonder whether he
I'm
just
sorry,
wants.
but there exists no magic money tree for anyone, including Juve. And Juve have been getting cash injection after cash injection after cash injection without making any real player squad sacrifices. And at this point, Elkan is right. Make your plus and minus work. This can't be just a black hole where we plow in 2, 3, 4, 500 million euros every bloody year to fix this. Fix it yourself. That's not how you run a business. And I'm sorry, but at some point, this is bound to happen. And now it's happening. And I think, but the issue is, it's not been handled well by Giuntoli. It absolutely hasn't been handled well. He's scrambling now. He comes across as a director that is on the back foot and is backpedaling, trying to, put out one fire by starting a smaller fire somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? Like he's starting a smaller fire there to put out the big fire here in order to then go back and fix that. This is what happens when you don't when you don't get important decisions right, as he hasn't. And I think the Douglas Luiz one in particular, where Juve paid a ton of money and who's not making anyone happy. In fact, he's making people miserable by watching him play. His attitude is horrible. And he's scrambling.
No, scrambling is the perfect word. I mean, I just find it astonishing.
Desperation.
I find it astonishing that he's had 3 months to sign a centre-back. and they need to sign the plan is to sign two centre backs because Danilo's about to leave to join Napoli. They need to sign two centre backs. He's known that for 3 months, and here we are on January the 20th,
Yeah,
and he's
nothing.
and now this is where we're at now. Lloyd Kelly is the number one choice on the list. Newcastle reserve. Lloyd Kelly. Doesn't even get on the Newcastle bench sometimes. They're holding a summit with Chelsea over Renato Vega, a Chelsea reserve, and Ben Chilwell, according to Alfredo
Oh
Pedrola. They're going to
God
talk
in
about him
heaven!
in the case that Cambiaso still goes. I
No,
mean, this is
my
this.
eyes don't need to see that.
I mean,
Like, I
this is
don't.
this is
No,
this is embarrassing. He's had 3
yeah,
months, and he's at this stage now.
I don't need to see
He
Ben
got
Chilwell in
completely
a Juve
played
shirt.
by Ronald Araujo, who's going to sign a new contract for Barcelona. He's been
Yeah, that's another mess up as well. I mean, this is what I mean. He comes across as someone who looks a bit clueless, and is scrambling and is desperate, and that's not a good look.
no.
And he needs to start winning. He needs to start getting wins. Before if he doesn't, I think there's a risk he might be on his
Well, no,
butt.
this is a disaster, yeah, but absolutely do not sell Cambiaso at all costs.
Look, I look at it like
If you sell Cambiaso, the Juventus are not a serious club. Simple as that. They're not a serious club anymore. They're not.
mm,
You
but
sell
65 million euros for Cambiaso. If that's true, I'd take that money and run. If you're in that position that you are, I'm
and do
sorry,
what with it? What they're
65.
going to do with it?
Well, what you can do with it is that you can try to get Nuno Tavares, someone like that. You put a deal in place for Nuno Tavares. You use that money to strengthen elsewhere. You have to make it work. This is a difficult situation that you have no one else to blame but themselves.
That's not how you build. You don't build a winning project by getting rid of your poor
Well,
players. You
you
don't.
don't. Yeah, but you still have to. Let's not forget
This
how
is like
they
I said before.
ended
This
up.
is the equivalent of Inter selling Bastoni or Barella. But if Inter had sold a Bastoni or Barella 4 years ago before Conte,
Inter
the Inter would not have
had
won the
to
league
make.
because that's not how you build a winning
Yeah,
team.
but Inter had to. They had to sell Hakimi. They had to sell Lukaku because
Mm.
they lived beyond their means.
Yeah, but
Juventus
you
have
got to remember
lived
that was
beyond their
a
means.
winning Inter team. That was a team that had already won. Juventus are at the start of trying to build something, and they're fifth in Serie A. Like, this is Juventus that at the start and they're building. That was an Inter that had culminated in winning the Serie A, and then they were put in that position, and it was understandable. This is a Juventus that are trying to build. You do not
Mm.
sell.
Well, because you can't spend 60 million on a dud. Italian clubs can't afford that. It has huge ramifications, long-term ramifications, and serious
But even if he
ramifications.
hadn't been in a dud, there still would have been needing to balance the books. So
Yeah. Well,
do you know
there
what I
you
mean?
go. So regardless, it's a financial issue. You can't just expect Exor to plow in hundreds of millions of euros every year with a cash injection. It's just not doable. It's just not sustainable. At some point, there has to be like, hang on, you need to fix your company. You
Yeah,
need to make plus and minus add up.
this is not serious. And when you see the players that are being linked, these Premier League reserves for a team as big as Juventus, it's sad. And it also on Serie A as well. You know, if Juventus were to lose Cambiaso and they're replacing them with what, Lloyd Kelly, like these. I mean, are we serious? I
I
mean,
don't
this
need
is
to
this where
see that.
Serie A is at. I mean,
I don't need to see that. I don't need to see Lloyd Kelly in a Juve shirt, and I sure as hell don't need to see Ben Chilwell in a Juve shirt because I'm no,
Yeah, and this is
no.
where we're at. What are we? We're a Premier League reject
Mm,
team. Milan are
mm.
buying a reject. I mean, Milan are already a Premier League reject team. I'm going to get a lot of heat for saying that, but have it count the number of Premier League rejects and cast-offs in that Milan team,
I don't really
Milan
care
squad.
about that if the player is good enough, but you can't. Milan don't have Ben Chilwell or Lloyd Kelly. Like, I mean, it's just they just don't. Um, I think this
Well,
notion of Premier League reject, blah blah blah. I mean, look, it depends. Look, Scott McTominay is a Premier League reject. He's doing wonderful things over at Napoli. I don't. It depends on who it is and what they're doing. But Lloyd Kelly and Ben Chilwell, my God in heaven, no.
yeah.
Please God, no.
Listen, we're going to have to move through the rest of the stuff quickly because we're on 1 hour 20 minutes now, and we've only gone through two of the matches. So into Empoli first, Nima. Let's run this up quickly. So I didn't think it was a good Inter performance. They didn't create very much, but they did enough to win. I thought the biggest positive was Lautaro is
Mm,
back on form.
yeah.
It was poor goalkeeping, but it was a great strike. And Dumfries, again, what a header that was. That's a world
Mm,
class header. He's got 4 goals in his 5 games. And I'll say it again, in his time at Inter, best right back in the league. Only Di Lorenzo can challenge him for that title, and I think it's about time he's recognised for that. I think he's playing, having an amazing season. He's an amazing
7 goals now in all
That's
competitions
insane.
for Dumfries. He's not a right back. That's the thing. He's an attacker. Like that's the thing. That's how they use him, and he's very good in the air. He's his mental strength when is what impresses me. It really is the only aspect of his game that is world class is his mental strength. He's a mentality monster. He never gives up. He never gives up, and you need that kind of leadership and lead by example in a team. Lautaro, by far the best example, the best positive in a rather torrid night where Inter looked flat. I think aside from him, from Lautaro, from Barella, from Dumfries, before the substitutes came on, it was a rather flat Inter.
Augusto
But
was good, I thought.
yeah, he
Carlos
was
Augusto.
defensively he's fine,
Yeah.
but he doesn't offer much going forward. Di Marco was having an off night. Taremi was probably his worst performance in an Inter shirt. He just looked
My
timid.
God, yeah, I'm sorry, but Taremi,
His
he's
finishing against Venezia was bad. His finishing against Bologna was woeful, even though he was okay overall playing. But the game against Empoli, he just had a shocker. He was nowhere near as it was him and Aslani was this was the game for them to show who they are, and Aslani at least
yeah, I thought
showed
he was
grit
okay. I
and
thought he was
fight.
decent. Yeah,
He showed grit and fight. He showed something. He showed willingness. Taremi Lorena looked like a scared child, and
Taremi's
that's not
just
good.
Taremi's hold-up play, like his link-up play, is actually okay. It's actually
Yeah,
decent, but
yeah.
he's so impotent. He just has
He looked scared.
there's no thrust in attack. I mean, he's 32. He looks like a 35-year-old. He doesn't have the bite and the thrust in attack, and he's scared to shoot. Like
That's what I mean.
I've actually
Scared.
seen. I was joking about this with my friends. I said he's the kind of right now. You stick it if you put a football through to Taremi and he's 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, he'll stop the ball and then pass it back.
Yeah.
Like he
No,
doesn't want
because
to shoot.
it's a mental thing. It's clearly a mental thing. He's scared, and he's scared to shoot, and it's become a thing with him. And his finishing has been awful all week. He missed a sitter against Bologna. Against Venezia. It was dreadful, and now
Yeah.
he's just not.
He's
He's
been
not.
he's been a big flop. And if the positive is he was a free transfer, so he doesn't financially hurt Inter in the way that say Douglas Luiz hurts Juventus. Do
In
you
the
know what I
Serie
mean?
A for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
3 starts, 1 assist is
Well, he's got 2 goals in over 1,000 minutes this season, and that's especially when you're playing for Inter. I know some of those have been dribs and drabs. It's hard to get into a rhythm when you only have like small amounts of minutes in a game. But it's 1,000 minutes, and he's got 2 goals, and one of them's a penalty. And I've said it. I still say again. I think if there's any chance Inter can sign a centre forward in January,
It's
or at
not
least
going to
look for
happen.
one. I know you're going to say there isn't, but for me, it could be the difference between winning the Champions League and not win the Champions League, because Inter, as soon as one of Lautaro and Thuram is off the pitch, the quality in attack just plummets, and
They
you
don't
need
need a
players.
striker.
You
They
need
need a
players.
midfielder more than
Well,
anything.
maybe, but I think like you need players to
They
come off the
scream
bench.
after a midfielder. I think it's no chance that Petar Sucic is the one that they're looking to sign for next season. I think Fratesi and Aslani are the ones being sacrificed, or unless they've got some sort of a massive big money offer for Çalhanoğlu. Because then
Yeah, they do need a replacement for Chelong. Listen, I'm really sorry, guys, but we're going to have to really race through the rest of them. So Lazio back to form. They win 3-0. Dia and Zaccagni impress. And they consolidate fourth place, 2 points from Juventus, 8 from Milan now, having played an extra game. And next week, Juventus are at Napoli and Lazio are at home to an out-of-form Fiorentina. So they've got a chance to open up the league. It's really exciting times, I think, for Lazio. I think they're doing really great, and they've bought Ibrahimovic from Bayern, Arjan Ibrahimovic, not Zlatan, obviously, and they're getting closer to sign Cesare Casadei from Chelsea ahead of Torino as well. So they're building like a team that's talking about projects. Young team, lots of upside. And I really like what Lazio are doing. I think they're doing really, really well. As are Roma. as well, Nima. 3-1.
I just want to say on Lazio, Boulaye Dia is just such a. I liked him already when he was at Salernitana. It's such a smart
Until he
signing.
went on strike, yeah.
Yeah, well, but no, yeah, of
Went
course,
on
I mean, it
strike for a
was,
whole season, but yeah,
but
yeah.
no, but he's really coming into his own. I think I like how Lazio play. I like that Baroni's handling the situation very, very calmly. He's doing a really good job.
Yeah, no, he is. He really is. Roma 3-1 against Genoa. Dybala was great. Got an assist, hit the woodwork with a free kick. Scored half a goal. We could say it was an own
That
goal.
free kick is insane. Like it is magical. Like go
Mm.
look at that again. It's such a shame it hit the bar.
Yeah,
It's such a beautiful technical number he
it
does.
was. I want to shout out to Kone as well. Fantastic,
Yeah.
great run for the third goal, and probably the one success story of Gazolfi. Actually, was Kone, his market, and yeah, he was really really good. Um, so yeah, Roma keep it up. They're looking really good. The rest of the weekend Serie A fixtures. So Bologna beat Monza and actually now have more points this season than
Then
Motta had at the point last season, despite losing half their team and
yeah,
having Champions League football. So hats off to Italiano in
yeah.
Serie A. At least he's done an incredible job, and they're right up there as well, fighting for top four. Let's not discount them. Great week for them, drawing against Inter as well. And Castro looks like a real
Yeah,
find as well. He's
Castro's an excellent find. Erdgård scored a wonderful goal. Orsolini scored a goal. Was a constant pain in the butt. No, it was a good performance by Bologna, who bounced back with a win after not having won for a couple of games in the Serie A. They'd gone three in the Serie A without a win. They get back to winning ways. Important for them. Um, but yeah, it's this Castro is looking like a really interesting find.
Yeah, for sure. Fiorentina won, Torino won, and Fiorentina's terrible form continues. They played against 10 men for over an hour and they couldn't win.
And did you see the goal they conceded?
Oh, horrendous, yeah. Who
What
made the
is
mistake? Was it Comuzzo?
Comuzzo?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not just him. It's just the movement and lack of organization. And Fiorentina are rattled. They
yeah,
are
they
really
are. They
rattled.
are.
Is there something has happened there? I think ever since Bove and Palladino's mum passing away, they've not recovered.
There's
And
also been some murmurings about a rift between Palladino and Palade, the sporting
yeah, I've
director,
seen that. I've seen that.
which has been denied publicly, but
Yeah.
Palade did give some strong words publicly a while ago. So yeah, it's a shame because like Gosen said full time, like they risked throwing away kind of all the amazing work that they did at the start of the season,
Mm.
8 wins in a row. They're still in a good position, but they need to, yeah, this was worrying from a mental point of view. It looked like a team, like you said, rattled. Cagliari 4, Lecce 1.
I have to talk about Luperto. Did you see his almost Roberto Mancini backheel volley goal?
Of all players.
Like, he didn't score, but had that gone in, that's Roberto Mancini for Lazio with a backheel volley or whatever that is. It was
Mm.
wow. He did score a goal in the end in a 4-1 win. It was a really exciting game.
Yeah,
Lecce, Ante Rebic and what's his name at Torino, you have to be brain dead. Ali Dembele, when you already have a yellow card, you don't go in like that. And Ante Rebic, I mean, he has no self-control. How many times have we seen him do these head loss things and gets himself sent off? It was just like no discipline whatsoever.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And Como Udinese is on Monday. Dele Alli.
Parma Venezia 1-1. Filip Stankovic, again, fantastic saves
Yeah,
and is
yeah.
really
Dele
impressive.
Alli signs for Como until
Yeah.
2026 free transfer. So let's watch out for that. That's going to be an interesting one.
Mm.
European fixtures this week. I'll just read them out. So return of the Champions League, penultimate match day of the league phase. So Atalanta, Sturm, Graz, Bologna, Dortmund, Club Brugge, Juventus on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Milan, Girona, and Sparta, Prague, Inter. Just to sum this up, Atalanta, Juventus, Milan, and Inter are all basically through already. to the first knockout phase. But Milan, Atalanta, and Juventus simply have to win. They all need to win their last two matches to guarantee being in finishing in the top eight. So they all have to win their games. Simple as that. As for Inter, they're on 13 points, and they'll need probably 3 points is enough. Actually, 98% chance of finishing in the top eight if they get 3 points from their last two games. But 4 points to absolutely guarantee it. So they need to win as well. So
Well, they do.
that sums
They
it
do.
up pretty much.
I mean, and given that Juve play away to Club Brugge, you expect them to win. Inter play away to Sparta Prague, you expect them to win. Milan play home to Girona, you expect them to kind of to be able to win that. And Atalanta at home to Sturm
Yeah,
Graz.
we're
So
expecting 4 wins. We're expecting
yeah,
4 wins. Thursday is the return of the Europa League, penultimate match day of the league phase. Roma away at AZ in Holland, Alkmaar, and Lazio at home to Real Sociedad. Um, Lazio, I think, basically need a draw from the last two games to absolutely guarantee finishing in the top eight. And Roma need, I think, 2 points to guarantee top 24. They're not going to get in the top eight. So, yeah, Roma, we want a win for Roma as well. Yeah, let's finish off.
Bologna have got Dortmund at home.
Yeah,
I
well, they've
mean,
got nothing to play for. So,
yeah,
no.
it's just, yeah.
No, it's okay. Let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie Ass of the week. Okay, Baggio. You've got a message from one
No,
of.
I've got two
Okay.
Baggios, to be honest. I've got the first one. I got a message from Roberto Scibetta, the JuveFC.com admin on Twitter, who sent a really lovely message. That he sent. Nicolò Manta I think they live in Burnley. He's been his best friend for 40 years, and he's a Milan fan, and he lost his father Vincenzo, who's a massive Inter fan, at the beginning of the pandemic back in 2020. And Vincenzo Manta was like a second father to Roberto, and he taught him a lot about football growing up, and he's also a huge Burnley fan. And then a few weeks ago, Nicolò, the son, arranged to have some Inter fans come over to Burnley to pay tribute to Vincenzo, who was a pillar in his community, and celebrate his love for Inter, Burnley, and football. And it was a beautiful thing. They reported it in Burnley Express, about Inter fans coming to Turf Moor and paying tribute to Vincenzo, who had a local business there. And it was a very, very heartwarming story. And it was nice to see. I mean, it's, Vincenzo, father Inter fan, his son Milan fan, and Roberto Juve fan. It was they all kind of, how they come together, and Inter fans coming over, and they all celebrated Vincenzo's life. So yeah, I thought that was very beautiful.
Shows what
So
football can do, doesn't it? That's the good side of football.
yeah, it is, and of course condolences to the Manta family for the loss of Vincenzo, of course. And then the second Baggio I had was the video. It was very, very beautiful video. Goodbye video by Kvaratskhelia, where, I mean, all things in life, good or bad, they do come to an end. And so now has this beautiful marriage between Napoli and the people, the good people living under the shadow of Vesuvius, and who they nicknamed lovingly Kvaradona. And I got to thinking, I mean, perhaps this marriage didn't end in a way that was worthy of the love they once shared, but time does have a tendency to heal most hurts, and I suppose that's a kind of a testament to the eternally optimistic nature of human spirit, that no matter bad how things have been, we still have an instinctive urge to kind of remember what was beautiful long after it's ended. And one particularly powerful aspect that I think rings true in the south of Italy, at least in my opinion, is the particular manner in which people and events are transferred into folklore. And I think it's particularly pertinent to Naples, which is a city that is forged in fire and love. And few things, as we all know, burn as intensely in life as love. Sometimes so intensely it can burn everything to ash. And we don't know what happened fully between Napoli and Kvara. And Kvara, in his farewell video, did allude to one day telling everything. I'm not sure that's going to happen. And also, I'm not sure that the Kvara Napoli love story really did burn to ash. But there's no doubt that it didn't end the way that either of them had hoped it would. But, life has a funny way of not only soothing burning passions, but also provide clarity and perspective. And I think unless Kvaratskhelia does a Higuain, I'm sure he'll forever be remembered in the pantheon of Neapolitan greats. And I think together with Spalletti, Osimhen, Kim Min-jae, De Laurentiis, Raspadori, and all the others, they will be remembered for finally being able to turn the page when in the year 2 AD, after Diego, just like Argentina that season in the World Cup in Qatar, they were able to dance their way to the summit of Calcio's Mount Olympus, and against the backdrop of Diego standing behind them, stare down on the rest of the world, and no longer letting the past be a burden or a hindrance, but a bridgeway to a beautiful present, whilst hopefully looking on to the future, and a future that is looking very hopeful indeed. They will always share those memories, and I think in Naples, I think history has taught us that in and of itself is worth its weight in gold.
That was beautiful, Nima. Beautiful homage, and I thought the video was beautiful as well. Absolutely beautiful. He will be a legend. It's a shame that he was treated badly. I thought very badly by De Laurentiis, but he showed a lot of class there in the way that he made his exit, and with that video in particular. Premface of the week. Gosh, we're going from the beautiful to the absurd here.
Succession.
This is absolutely insane. This is. I mean, we know what TalkSport is about, and we know that some of the absolute shit that they talk. It makes like pub talk look like a philosophical debate between I don't know, Socrates and Plato or something. But it's Ray Parlour and Alan Brazil.
Why did they even go there?
This is just insane. So it's Ray Parlour and Alan Brazil are just discussing World War II, but they're talking about it like it's a football match. And Ray Parlour's like, winning World War II was great, wasn't it, Alan? I mean, that was special, wasn't it? That was a special victory, really special victory, winning World War II. I mean, God, can you imagine the celebrations after winning the World War II?
That is a quote, by the way. Carlo's not making that up. He literally said that. Like, they're talking about World War II like it's a hard-fought 2-1 win away to Stoke. I mean, it's weird. I mean,
it's amazing. It's amazing. And then at the end, he goes, "Oh, do you like the World War II, Alan? I mean, I love it. I love watching all the World War II stuff. I love it, Alan." And I was like, "Yeah, I love it as well. Yeah, I do like it. Yeah."
I mean, I felt the way they were talking about it, I was expecting one of them to go, but realistically, how many of the Germans get into the England team? Yeah. You know, Himmler couldn't break into the Brighton setup. Ribbentrop struggled at Pompey, and now he's back in Berlin. So realistically, this should have been a straightforward 3-0 win for England. I mean, that's what I was expecting them to say.
It was basically that, to be honest with you. The way they were talking about it. I mean, yeah. I mean, only 85 million people died in World War II, eh? So, I mean, yeah. But
it's the most. It's just I can't believe they. They have to. I mean, I am convinced now that they do it just for a wind up. Like they have to do it.
This was something else, though. I mean,
yeah, well, they have to do it for a wind up. Like they have to do it for they do this on purpose. This is scripted. Like or not scripted per se in the sense that somebody actually writes the gibberish that they say, but I mean that they kind of decide beforehand. Let's go on. Do you know what I mean? Like let's do it like. There's no way. No one talks.
Ray Parlour he's a good guy. I think
he's funny.
He's a good guy. He's funny, and he doesn't mean it in a bad way. But
no, of course not. But it's absolutely an absurd discussion.
It really is. I mean, it's not the first. I mean, like when he made that tribute to Kevin Campbell, bless his heart. I love Kevin. I knew him. He's an amazing guy. Like, and he kind of paid tribute to him by what was it, like down in a Jägermeister or something?
Yeah, Jägerbomb.
Jägerbomb or something. He's like
on Twitter, like, "Cheers, mate. Here's to you. Sorry you died." I mean, it's just I don't know.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's like Michael Owen and in his video to Sven. Did you see it? Like,
yeah, I know. Oh my god! This was definitely up there with like the greatest Premface moments. Up there with Mike Graham, the former Talksport host who had that argument with the environmental campaigner, saying
By growing
saying
concrete.
that he could grow concrete.
Yeah, that it grows naturally, organically in nature. Yeah.
That was brilliant. Right, let's finish off with Serie Ass of the week. Actually, this
And
is
this is probably the greatest Serie A we'll ever have.
yeah,
I don't think of any other country or any other. This is quintessentially only an Italian football issue.
yeah.
I really can't think
Mm. So this is from a
anywhere
week
else.
ago. This is so the Lazio Falconer, who's was famous for before every single Lazio match. He releases the falcon, doesn't he?
No, but it's not a falcon; it's an
An
eagle.
eagle, sorry.
The
He
eagle's
releases
name's
the eagle, the Lazio
e-
logo,
yeah.
like the emblem of Lazio. He releases it, and then it
Well,
comes back to him. Is that
yeah, before
basically?
the game, because Lazio are called the Eagles. The eagle is named Olympia. Flies around the pitch to the Lazio anthem. It's all very pretty, and he lands on his arm. Juan Bernabé is the name of the falconer, who's quite the controversial character when he was suspended 4 matches for making fascist salutes back in 2021, and he also lives at Formello at Lazio's training ground. Now, after what happened was Lazio have now broken off all ties with him permanently. And why is that? Because he had a prosthetic penis implant operated in, and he proudly shared videos of his new implant in all its erect glory on Instagram. I'm not making that up. And he added that he needs to have sex 3 times or 4 times a day with however many women in order to celebrate life and love or whatever it else he was on about. Now, in a normal situation, something absurd happens. That's the end of it. But then again, this is Serie A and this is Italy, so naturally Claudio Lotito had to get involved. He sacked him, which is hilarious in and of itself, where it's like fascist salutes, 4-match suspensions, penis implant, get out. Like, okay, that's in and of itself hilarious. He goes on La Zanzara, which is a radio show which can best be described as, for those of you who live in the United States, Howard Stern, only Zanzara makes Howard Stern seem like Sunday school. They have no boundaries, okay? Literally no boundaries. Lotito goes on there saying, and is asked by the host, why did you sack him then? Why did you sack him now and not then? And Lotito literally says, I think this is worse. This is worse than making a fascist salute. And it just goes on and on.
Which the history with the fascist salute is that this guy, the falconer, had done a fascist salute a
Yeah.
few years earlier,
Yeah,
and
2021, he was suspended for 4 matches.
but kept his
Um,
job. Yeah.
Yeah, but he kept his job. And then this just goes on, and then
Well, the best
there's
of all was when it became it was revealed that the operation was was performed by a Lazio doctor,
Lazio's
who's
doctor,
also
who's now
known.
also been sacked
Yeah.
because of morality, according to Lotito. It's just, and then apparently he, Bernabe the falconer has had barricaded himself because he lives at Formello. I mean, the more you just tell the facts of that story, the more insane it gets. This cannot happen anywhere else in the world other than in Italian football.
It's magnificent. It's
Like,
magnificent.
it's just the most it's the peak of Serie A.
Mm,
There will never be a great. I mean, you know what? I'm challenging Calcio.
yeah.
Find me a bigger Serie A than this.
No. And then the Lazio players all celebrated their victory by holding up a picture of the falconer after the game.
And the Roma fans
I
celebrated
made
their
that I made
victory.
that up, by the way. They didn't
Yeah,
really
yeah. Well,
do that.
the Roma fans celebrated their victory by paying tribute to Bernabe by holding up a giant inflatable penis.
Oh my god!
And like, this is, I mean, it's just the memes on this. Calcio Twitter has been on fire this week, and they have been unbelievable. It has been so much fun following this. it's just unbelievable. It's we're in January. This is January. This has been a fantastic start to the year for things that only happen in Italian football. Unbelievable.
The Kardashians, Kyle Walker, and now
Oh, yeah.
the Lazio Faulkner.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And Ray Parler and Adam Brazil talking about World War II.
Like it's a football game, like a FA.
Okay,
FA
well, listen, we're not gonna beat that. So let's leave it at that. Finish on a high, let's say. We will be back later in this week for Q&A and for review of the
Champions League review.
Champions League matches. So until then, ciao, ciao.